Today we are discussing the disturbing case of Damien Bendall. This story hails from England. On September 19, 2021, Derbyshire police received a call about a man with self-inflicted stab wounds. Upon arrival, police found Damien sitting outside of a home on Shondo Crescent, located close to the Kilmarsh Town Centre, at approximately 7:26 a.m. British Standard Time. Bendall's mother had called police when she had spoken to her son that morning, and he informed her of what he had done. Bendall was covered in blood because he had stabbed himself in the chest and stomach with a bread knife. Bendall then did something very, very odd. He confessed to quadruple murder. This confession was captured on the body cams of the police.
He's been calm and compliant, but he's got some stab wounds to his chest. They're not oozing blood, but he's saying that his family are inside and that he believes he has murdered them. Are you alright for me to go in?
After hearing this confession, the police were first in disbelief, but decided to search the house to be sure that Bendall was telling the truth. When they entered the residence, they found 4 bodies, 1 woman and 3 children. The police arrested Bendall immediately. Before going to jail, Bendall was sent to Northern General Hospital in Sheffield to be treated for his stab wounds, which he just got a few stitches.
Damien, it's 07:47 hours. I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. Do not mention when questioned something you later rely on in court, and if you do say may be giving in evidence. Your arrest is necessary to protect you from harm, to prevent your disappearance, for a prompt and effective investigation. Okay? We're going to get you up, we're going to put you in the back of the van.
Damien Bendall shared the residence that the police arrived at with his girlfriend Terry Harris, age 35, and her 2 children, ages 11 and 13. Her son John Paul Bennett is the 13-year-old, and her daughter Lacey Bennett is the 11-year-old. Also in attendance that day of the murder was Connie Gent, and this was Lacey's best friend and schoolmate. Connie was there for a sleepover. On the evening of September 18, 2021, after an evening of doing illegal recreational drugs, Damien went through the house and brutally murdered every occupant in it with a claw hammer.
Basically, I need the police and the ambulance and that because I've killed 4 people.
Okay, just hold the line. Bear with me.
Bendall went from room to room, slashing and bludgeoning every member of that household. Terry, who was in her early stages of pregnancy, and 3 minor children with that hammer. He started with John Paul, who was in the bathroom preparing to shower. He was the first person to be found by the police. John Paul was found naked on the bathroom floor. Police then found Harris and her daughter Lacey in the master bedroom. Terry was on the floor and Lacey was on the bed. But poor little Lacey, oh, it is so sad. She was found with her nightdress pulled up and bound around her neck. Forensic evidence showed that Bendall had raped Lacey downstairs and then moved her body upstairs where he raped her again. He strangled her with that nightgown, which contributed to her death, along with her head injuries. Lacey had a fractured skull from at least being hit 1 time with the hammer. He was exceptionally cruel with Lacey. Lacey's friend Connie was found dead in another bedroom, face down on the floor. When I see stories like these, it makes me incredibly grateful that my mom never allowed me to go to sleepovers. My mom was super overprotective of me, and I couldn't go anywhere. And now as an adult, and I see the true dangers that are out there for children, it really makes me eternally grateful to my mom. Bendall murdered his family the previous night before, Saturday, September 18th, 2021. When Bendall went from room to room slaying everyone in the house, he was high off of 4 bags of cocaine and weed. He then claims to have blacked out. However, after he murdered his family, he stole John Paul's Xbox and went to sell it for drugs. He has a history of stealing and then selling what he stole to buy his drugs. He would steal from people on the streets, and then he would also steal from his family. Terry mostly. He stole her washing machine and her laptop and sold it for drugs.
In the early hours of the following morning, Bendall left the home where his victims lay dead with the Xbox that belonged to the boy he'd murdered. He took a taxi to Sheffield where he exchanged it for drugs. He returned to the house and appeared calm as he went to a nearby shop to buy tobacco. He was described in court as truly evil, a drug addict with a long history of violence.
After murdering his family, he took a cab while completely covered in blood to sell the Xbox. When he returned home that morning, he called his mother and told her what he had done. She then called 999, which is the equivalent to 911 in America. He too also called 999, and there's a recording of him saying that he killed some people. So 2 times he admitted guilt that morning about what he did. So him saying that he blacked out is just complete bullshit, because he admitted to killing his family twice before being arrested. He then sat down on the ground in front of his house and waited for the police to arrive. Again, when the police arrived, they saw all the blood on him, and then he also was forced to strip down, where they saw the stab wounds and called for EMS to come take him to the hospital so that his wounds could be treated. And then at the hospital, he received stitches. Sorry to repeat myself.
Come to me. Mate, have you got anything on you that you shouldn't have?
No, there's no weapons or nothing.
Right.
Right, do you just want them to do your coat? Have you armed yourself?
Yeah.
You have?
Have you stabbed yourself, mate?
I can see blood on your hands.
Yeah.
Anywhere else?
Just my chest, 4 inches in with a bread knife.
Can we have a look?
Yeah, and one on the stomach. I bled quite.
Right, do you want
I bled quite a lot.
yeah.
Can we go down
No, just stay there.
I just don't want to be in front of everyone.
Alright, just go on the corner.
Just walking wounded at the minute.
Alright, stand here. Stay here.
Right.
So,
We told you, I know what's going to happen to you now, mate.
Well, I know it's going to
We
happen
just-
when we go to prison, obviously, but again.
Why, what have you done? Have you done something to anyone else?
Yeah,
What have you done?
I've murdered 4 people.
Now that you know the crime, let's talk about the victims and Damien Bendall himself. Terry and Damien met on a dating app in April of 2020. They fell in love and Bendall moved from Sheffield to Killamarsh. Terry and Damien started a relationship after her relationship with her children's father dissolved after 14 years of dating. Terry was a mother of 2 that worked as a care provider, and Damien didn't have a job. He couldn't hold a job. His professional job was stealing. That's what he thought a job was. So why this woman would date this man is beyond me. He seemed like a loser from the get-go. From the beginning, Damien was jealous, possessive, and controlling, and he would periodically go off on fits of rage, and he had the family pretty terrified. So pretty much there were signs that he was going to go off. Damien Bendall has a lot of criminal convictions that date back to 10 years. At the time of the murders, Bendall received a 2-year suspended sentence for arson and was being electronically tagged. The arson case was in June 2018. Bendall set a BMW on fire and was sentenced to 17 months in prison. The sentence was suspended for 2 years after admitting to arson. For the suspended prison sentence, Bendall was ordered to complete 175 hours of unpaid work, which is volunteering, a 5-month curfew, and made to pay £1,200 as compensation to his victims. The probation officer who handled Bendall's case was a trainee and made a huge mistake. He classified Bendall as a medium risk instead of a high risk. This allowed Bendall to be eligible for the suspended sentence. This probation officer has since been fired and was found guilty of gross misconduct. This is significant because 3 months after this probation hearing, where Bendall was considered a medium risk, he murdered his family. Probation officials believe that it would have been highly unlikely that Bendall would have been able to commit these crimes because at a high risk he would have been locked up and he would have never gotten a suspended sentence, especially if his report reflected his actual status. A second probation officer was found guilty of misconduct in a separate hearing for allocating Bendall's case to a trainee. A formal review will be done next year by the Ministry of Justice to look into how Bendall's case was handled by the probation officers. This is because his release caused the death of 4 people, 5 including the unborn child, and this is serious. Bendall was also convicted of other violent crimes. In 2011, at the age of 21, Bendall was jailed and sentenced to 2 years in prison for robbing a man for £50 and a cell phone. He was jailed again in 2015 for attempting to rob a local shopkeeper in Swinton. Shopkeeper Narendra Patel fought Bendall off with a golf club when Bendall pulled out a knife in an attempted robbery. Bendall was arrested and jailed for 3 years. While in jail, Bendall became addicted to a drug called spice, which is a synthetic cannabinoid, also known as synthetic weed. This account comes from Bendall's ex-cellmate, who regrets not telling the prison warden about Bendall's addiction. He feels that if he had told, Bendall would still be in prison and the family would have never been murdered. Bendall is currently residing in HMP Wakefield Prison in England. During the trial, Bendall attempted to claim that he suffered from a brain injury several years ago and that he was medically and psychologically impaired. However, extensive neurological tests proved that this was not the case. When all medical options were exhausted and the evidence showed that he murdered these victims with no medical impairment, Bendall then admitted to and accepted all charges by pleading guilty. He could no longer lie or use his drug addiction as an excuse to get out of these convictions. Bendall was convicted of 4 murders and the rape of Lacey. He was also hit with 5 life sentences and will never be released from prison. This man is a monster, and it's suspected that he may have been assaulting Lacey long before he even killed her and her family. But we don't know, and it could be why he raged out and killed everyone when he was confronted. This part is speculation, of course. I'm just trying to understand how someone can lose their mind and just completely murder a bunch of people. It was like a massacre. There was blood everywhere, and it's just really sick and it's heartbreaking. And when I hear stories like this, again, it makes me grateful for my parents who were so heavily protective of me. I was not allowed to stay over. And he didn't just murder his family, he murdered an innocent girl who was just staying the night with her friend. You can never really trust anyone, and we always have to remember that there could be a monster lurking at our door. The person next to you, the person that you love, family, anybody has the potential to hurt you. And I hope we learned from this to always be very watchful of our children and to be extra vigilant, even if they don't like it. And that's all I got for you. I'm out.